Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to worship at Wahoo First United Methodist Church. My name is Pastor Michael Carpenter, and I am so excited that you have decided here to join us for worship today. So before we get started with our worship, I would ask that, especially if you're watching this on Facebook right now, if you wouldn't mind commenting here on the feed so that others can know as they're watching this that you're watching this, and we can get some wonderful discussion and fellowship going among our church family. So please leave a comment here, maybe saying who you are, that you're excited to worship with us, or maybe what the big dream God has given you that we'll be talking about later in our service. So also, before we get into the other elements of our worship, and we have a lot today, we have a jam-packed, wonderful service for you. Before we get into that, I do have a couple of announcements for you, as is my custom here in these videos. So the first announcement is we are planning on Sunday, October 25th, to have a reception of new members into our church family. We have a couple families who've been trying to join the church ever since the pandemic began, and it's always been awkward, but now we are planning a virtual reception of these new members. And so if you are watching this and you or your family have never taken the plunge into joining our church officially as members of our church family, I would encourage you to think about it and then to reach out to me if you're interested. If this is you, you can either comment on however you're watching this and I'll get in touch with you, or you can send me an email or call the church office. I would love to have that conversation with you. So also coming up here a week from today, we will begin a new worship series on the Old Testament prophets. So I put together a quick promo video for that, and I want you to check it out now. Thus saith the Lord to the powers and principalities of this world. Those are the words that begin many of the addresses of the Old Testament prophets, a group of men and women who were chosen by God to speak in the midst of troubled times. You may have heard some of their names before, like Isaiah or Jeremiah, while others may be lesser known, like Habakkuk and Nahum. And beginning Sunday, September 27th, these prophets will be the focus of our upcoming worship series, which is titled, of course, Thus Saith the Lord, the Old Testament prophets in their world and ours. We'll hear the wide variety of messages from the prophets, including warnings of gloom and doom to wayward peoples, words of critique and condemnation for unjust rulers, and assurances of hope to people in the midst of despair. We'll focus each week on the specific tasks of the prophets, which include speaking truth to power, social religion and social holiness, hope givers, and future tellers. In the midst of our own troubled times and on the eve of a divisive national election, we can turn to these Old Testament prophets for a sure word from the Lord. A word which will convict us as well as uplift and unify us. So join us for worship on Facebook or on YouTube each Sunday morning beginning September 27th as we hear from the prophets, Thus saith the Lord. I'll see you then. This will be an exciting series. I think it's a timely series for us, and so I can't wait here to share the message of the prophets with you in these next coming weeks. All right, so next we also have something special today, and that is a children's conversation with the Palachek family, and so I will throw it over here to Doug and his family now for our children's conversation.
Well, here's something you don't see every day. The mailman giving a message from a mail truck out on his mail route, but hey, I'm on a break, so I can do this. So it's great to talk to you, church family. My family misses y'all. I have to say that I've really enjoyed Pastor's sermon series on Dream Big and how we should be shooting for the stars and trying to do our best to be what God wants us to be. And, you know, I think about some of the dreams I had as a teenager and as a young adult. And even at 17, I didn't know that I wanted to be a teacher. And obviously, those of you that know me, I taught for, 8 years. And I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher. And it's kind of, I don't know if God turned me that way or guided me that way. But to me, I think that was a dream I had that I didn't even know I had. And at the time, I thought college was going to be too much for me. I thought it was financially going to be too much. I thought that educationally it was going to be too much. But, I took a lot of baby steps to get to where I was as a teacher. And, I initially, things were tough. I mean, my first college test, I easily failed. But, what happened is I persevered. I took those baby steps where, okay, I'm going to do good at this. I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to do good at this. I'm going to do better at this. And I just look back now and I know through the grace of God, he made me better. He helped me to be better. And I owe everything to him because I know that I couldn't have been a teacher and then developed into, I felt like I was a pretty good teacher by the end. In terms of being guided by God, I just think that all those little baby steps I took to achieve my dream really paid off. And, even though now I'm a mailman and best mailman in Lincoln in the Haymarket, I still teach Sunday school. I mean, obviously I have a tribe of kids at home. So I just feel like, we can dream big. And the way that we dream big, we're not going to do it all at one time. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take patience and knowing that God's not going to give us everything in one big lump. So I guess to me, I thank Pastor for the worship series he's done over the last month because it has kind of guided us in the fact that we can dream big. And, I've achieved a lot of dreams already. There's a few more I have, and hopefully I live long enough to achieve them. So, church family, I miss you a lot. Hopefully we'll see you soon. I miss all the Canutes. I miss all of you. Miss everybody. So have a wonderful day and God bless you.
All right, so thank you, Doug and family, for that wonderful children's conversation. So lastly, before we get into our worship message for today, I want to invite you here to our responsive liturgy. We'll have some readings from Proverbs chapter 16, and so I invite you to read along with the words on the screen in our responsive liturgy. This is Proverbs chapter 16, verses 1 through 4 and 7 through 9. If you feel led, if you'd like to say these words along with me here as part of a responsive liturgy. To people belong the plans of the heart, but the answer of the tongue comes from the Lord. All the ways of people are pure in their eyes, but the Lord will test the motives. So commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. The Lord made everything for a purpose, even the wicked for an evil day. When people draw favor from the Lord, even their enemies are at peace with them. Better a little with righteousness than great profits without justice. People plan their path, but the Lord secures their steps. All right, so with that, let's now get into our main worship message for today. Most of you have probably flown in an airplane before, and that's what I want to begin with here today. What you might not know, though, is that I have actually gotten to fly an airplane once before in my life. No, I don't have a pilot's license or anything like that, but my dad does. And I remember one time he took me up in his little Cessna 182 four-seater plane. We got up to cruising altitude and he turned the controls over to me as the co-pilot. I was incredulous, I just looked at him and he said to me, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Flying a plane is easy. It's landing that's the hard part." And then so for a few miles up in the sky, I got to man the controls as the co-pilot. See, he said that landing is the hard part. Flying alone in the wide open sky is one thing, but it's another entirely to put the plane down on a much more narrow runway, which is only a mile long if you're lucky. And so as the pilot begins to bring the plane down toward the runway, and as you get toward those final few seconds before touchdown, there's a funny thing that happens. There is a phenomenon called the ground effect that makes the plane seem to float above the pavement for a few seconds. So if you're going to go on a flight anytime soon, I encourage you to check this out. That in those final few seconds before you touch the runway, it'll seem like you're floating a little bit. See, this has to do with Bernoulli's principle and with the lift and drag equations, which I would absolutely love to talk more about with you, but that's a tangent we probably shouldn't go down. If you don't believe me though, here's a video of another Cessna 182 experiencing the ground effect as it comes in for a landing. So check this out here. All right, so here we see the Cessna 182 is going to take off here, and then we'll see it return in a moment, and as it lands, we'll see a little bit of the ground effect. But these planes are so much fun to fly in. They're so much smaller, you feel everything, but you get to see, obviously, so much more than in a big plane. All right, so here it comes in for the landing. The video is going to slow down here in a second as we see it gets closer to the ground. And you see that right there, the wind just ever so barely pushed the plane up a little bit as it came in for the landing, and it's bouncing a little bit here now as it goes in to try to land in this little grass field. So because the wind will bounce off of the runway and push up the plane's wings just ever so slightly, it can be just a little bit harder than to land the plane, to actually bring it down onto the runway. Have you ever felt that in your own life? See, we've been talking this month about our wildest dreams and how we accomplish them for these last 4 weeks, and I hope for you that it's been fun. I hope it's been inspiring as we've talked about these huge dreams that God has given us, but there is a slight trap in all the dreaming if it never translates into action. There's something alluring about all this dreaming, all this planning, and something a little scary about actually accomplishing it. And so that allure and that fear can produce just enough of a ground effect to keep you from landing the plane of your dreams. Just look at me. My favorite part of any trip is the packing for it. This is not a joke, ask my family. I love to pack for trips almost as much, if not more, than the trip itself. And in the same way, back when I was a child, my favorite day of the year was when we went shopping for school supplies before the first day of school. I mean, it was a magical day for me when I could dream and plan for all the possibilities of the new year. See, inevitably, though, those dreams would never quite materialize. The vacations were never as fun as I had hoped or planned or imagined in my head. The school year always got just a little bit messier than I had dreamt. And I bet that you have had similar experiences in your own life. I imagine that you have been burned before, or you've been let down before, and the ground effect then of procrastination or fear has kept you from actually putting your wheels down at the destination that you wanted. And so our scripture today then has a word for those of us who have ever had any trouble translating hopes, dreams, or intentions into actions and reality. Let me set the scene for you here. So today we are in Matthew chapter 25 as Jesus tells a story to his disciples. The story in my Bible is titled The Judgment of the Nations. Cheery, right? The occasion is Jesus foretelling what will happen at the end of our earthly journeys when we see him seated in glory and he is dispensing his final judgment. So from here, I'll let our scripture reader for today, Cindy Nabity, pick up the story. So this is verses 31 through 40 of Matthew chapter 25.
When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer him, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me."
There is a profound and enduring message of hospitality in these verses. That it is Christ himself who we serve when we help those around us in need. But I want to focus today on the occasion for the verses and not the specific actions which Christ commends and talks about here. So that is, we see here that there is a judgment day. This is something Jesus says as fact. That there is a date and a time when our actions are examined by the risen and glorified Christ, when we might be separated, sheep and goats, left and right, all based on what we have said and done. Now, does that inspire or completely terrify you? I think we would all be served well here by pausing in reverence and humility at the thought of this judgment of the nations. The good news, of course, is that in the final estimation, our salvation is a result of our faith in Jesus Christ alone, not in something that we have earned by what we have done here on earth. So do not hear today that anyone earns a right to hear the words, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you." No, that right is Christ alone, which is given to us according to his free mercy and grace. But as the Apostle James says later in the New Testament, faith without works is dead. That our faith is directly seen in our words and our actions. As Jesus says, you can tell a tree by its fruit. And so our dreams, our hopes, our plans, and our intentions are all judged at the end on the actions that have come from them. So hear this. Dreams are meant to become realities. Your dreams are meant to become realities in your life. All that time spent dreaming up in the clouds is meant to be brought here down to earth when you land the plane on the pavement of your accomplishments. And so we hear these wonderful words of Jesus, "Come, you that are blessed." We hear those words precisely when we have turned our dreams into realities. We should take note as well, those dreams which Christ commends are those which have benefited others. That we see feeding and clothing, welcoming, providing, and caring for others. These are the foundations of the dreams which God gives us. As Bob Goff asks in his book, Dream Big, if God answered all of your prayers, would it change anybody else's life except your own? I think that Jesus told these verses in Matthew 25 to spur his listeners toward those actions of love and faith for others. And so for us, I pray that they would do the same. They would spur you to take action on your wildest dreams, knowing that those dreams are the ones that God has given you, and that those dreams God gives are those that build his kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. So let's land the plane here today. Let's take stock of the dreams we have been here discussing and figure out what our next course of action will be. So what is the big dream that you've been dreaming about? Here we spent this month now discussing these these ridiculous dreams that only God could have given us. In the first week, we set absurd expectations just like we did when we were younger. Then we cleared the path, removing those obstacles from our lives which hold us back. So then last week, we talked about pushing through setbacks. Those things in our lives which will set us back that we can reframe as learning opportunities on the way to accomplishing those dreams. So what is your big dream today? And from that, what is one specific, real, concrete action that you can take to land the plane and make progress on that dream? So to help us out, I will share again the dreams that I shared in the first week of our series together. If you remember, I told y'all that I had 2 dreams. I had one for our church and then one for me personally. For myself personally, I shared my dream to be a published author. Now this is a huge challenge. This would be an enormous thing to accomplish, and it would be so much easier and safer for me to continue dreaming about one day when I would see a book with my name on it on my bookshelf. I could continue dreaming and only dreaming. That's so much safer, or I could land the plane. I could fight through the ground effect of my own apprehension and take a small step to land the plane today. If I want to be a writer, I could begin writing more. I mean, practicing and getting better and better at writing. Or I could buy and read a book on how to write. I could reach out to some of my seminary professors who are published authors themselves and ask for their wisdom and expertise. What I'm trying to say here is that there are small things I could do here right now that aren't sending a manuscript to a publisher. Now, for my dream to come true, I will have to do that. That will have to happen at some point, but I'm not there yet. What we're talking about is baby steps. So what baby step could you take here today? So then for our church, I shared the dream I have that we would be the largest, most vibrant church in Saunders County, Nebraska. Now, I could spend all of my time only dreaming about how cool that would be, and trust me, I have spent a lot of time in my office dreaming about that very thing. But if we don't land the plane and make some actual forward progress on that dream, then the only thing I'll be able to report at our end-of-year charge conference forums is my pie-in-the-sky dream, and not some tangible results. So how do we make progress on that dream? First and foremost, we will only grow as a church by the power of the Holy Spirit. So committing to prayer for our church is an obvious and necessary first step for growth as a church. That is, praying for opportunities to grow and then for discernment on how to grow. So then we make progress on that huge dream by dreaming and accomplishing some smaller dreams first. I've got a couple to share with you here, and it's my sense that some of these dreams will resonate with the dreams that God has given you. And as I know that some of the things this church needs to do to accomplish the huge dream God has given us will line up exactly with your own gifts and passions and skills and dreams that God has planted within you. I know that God will raise up the people in this church to accomplish these dreams on the way to our larger dreams at church. So here are some of those dreams. One dream is to get every member of our church involved in ongoing faith-building discipleship. This could be through Sunday school or Bible studies or small groups. We would find some way for each and every one of us to grow in our faith. That if every one of us were committed to this life-changing, world-transforming faith, then we would be disciples equipped to build up this church and to take it out into the world. Then another dream is to get every member in our church to serve in some way in and outside of our church walls. The dream is that if each and every one of us were to act out what Jesus describes in our verses today from Matthew 25, I know that revival would not be far behind. That if each and every one of us would commit to feeding, to clothing, to helping, to supporting people in our church and in our community, taking that faith outside and translating our faith into actions and deeds, that is how we would explode in a new season of growth and vitality as a church. Then another more out there dream for us is to launch new ways to worship and be involved with our community. One idea is Laundry Church, where we minister to our community at the laundromat that we have downtown, providing spiritual nourishment and free laundry to people in our community, that we would meet a real need that they have for their day-to-day lives while also providing real community and worship for them, taking our life-changing, world-transforming faith out of these walls, outside of a Sunday morning, into ways that resonate and impact people day in and day after day. So then finally, an even more immediate and actionable dream for us. One way to grow our church is to increase our outreach and reach as a church. And we can't begin to do that without you. So I have something for you to do here, right now, to help us reach more people. I want you to share this video however you're watching it right now. That is, if you're on Facebook, that when you're done with the video, hit that share button on the post so that it can be shared into your own timeline. People beyond this church family can see the video. Or if you're watching on YouTube right now and you found the link to the video in a church email, you could forward that email to other people who you know need a vibrant church home, who need this life-changing, world-transforming faith, who need to hear a message about how to accomplish the wildest dreams God has given them. Like I said, I know the dreams God has given you are for His glory. They will build His kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. That God has given us these dreams so that they might become realities in our lives. But before they can become your greatest accomplishments, they need to be a series of individual committed steps that we begin today. So what is one concrete action you could take to make progress on your wildest dreams? It can be an action that you take here today or this week or maybe even this month. But I know that there is something that you can do soon to become the person that God is inviting you to be. Here in a moment, we will have a musical reflection piece played by our own Nancy Teeter. So in that time, I invite you to spend a moment in prayer thinking about your biggest dream and what is one thing you can do to make progress on it. So let's land the plane with me today and get ready to live in the reality of God's wildest dreams for your life.